Well, good morning and welcome. We have a very interesting broadcast here for you today. This is all about how to build your career brand with LinkedIn and really also how to use it for your job search and career management all at the same time. We have one professional presence, and most times we're so busy doing great things for our company, we're not paying enough attention to that. And sometimes it needs a new, fresh coat of paint. Sometimes it needs a whole new renovation. Well, today we're going to take you through all of those things that really affect your brand. And we're going to learn how to take back control, which is incredibly important. So first off, thanks for joining me today, whether you're joining me on Facebook or my Self-Recruiter YouTube channel, or maybe directly from LinkedIn itself. If you find value in today's presentation, I sure would appreciate a like, a comment, a share, a something. It really does help. So that's a great way to support. Let's start with this concept here. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. We're on such autopilot, following the rules, everything else. Subtitle of my book is Changing the Rules. If that rule works for me, I love that rule, love that rule. If that rule doesn't work for me, that's for somebody else. I need to step over that little fence that's meant to keep the other people away and proceed right with my path. You have to get behind the steering wheel, or you're not going to get to the destination that you think you're going to get to. Job search is a sales process. We have to take control of the discussion. I'm going to teach you a lot about that in tomorrow's session, which is my interview intervention session. There's 3 this week. There's yesterday's resume renovation, which you can watch most easily on my YouTube channel, but you can get to them through any of the other platforms I'm on as well. Today's building your career brand with LinkedIn. And then tomorrow is interview intervention, where it's your job to teach them how to select you, and not simply wait for them to select you. Not for they're going to pick me out of a hat. No, I have to teach them that I'm the one. And of course, I'll teach you all the techniques tomorrow, 10 a.m. Come back for that one. Do share that with your friends and everything else. It'll be very, very valuable for them. Now, your LinkedIn profile it needs to be effective. In my view, it needs to be the polar opposite to your resume. Yesterday, I talked about a resume needing to be a single sheet of paper. Now, when I said that over at the New York State Department of Labor, giving a lecture, somebody in back started to flip out. Oh, come on. What if you've been a CEO and you got a 30-year career? It's never going to fit. Okay, take a breath. I get it. I don't think your reaction is because you don't like John's answer. I think your reaction is because you find yourself sitting in the Department of Labor going, how did I get here? How come no one can see my value? Not a surprise that gentleman hired me. And he sends me his stuff, and it is 6 pages of my eyes bleeding. Never getting that to a single sheet of paper. I'm like, boom, right down to a single sheet of paper. It's an editing problem. You don't have to prove everything on the resume. Now, don't mishear that. It has to be a letter true. But that's not where you prove it. Where you prove it is in the interview, which we'll talk about tomorrow at 10 a.m. Polar opposite to that, to me, is your LinkedIn profile. How do you take that essence and value of your career on a single sheet of paper, which is the resume? Now, how do we take that skeletal system, structural framework to LinkedIn and turn it into this 3-dimensional sales brochure all about us that drives them to one singular conclusion? If they work with, buy, or hire from this person, best business decision they make today. So that's what we're going to teach you today. And we're going to start with the concept of you being a product. You being a product. Now, we talked about this yesterday. It's very, very important. Nobody likes to think of themselves as a product. But if we're not thinking of ourselves as a product today, someone else is going to take your opportunity. And we don't want that. Oftentimes, those other people that take your opportunity are just really great talkers, and they don't really produce the outcome that you could produce. In fact, I would say you owe it to the prospective employers to tell the best story possible. Still absolutely letter true. We got a little bit of tissue here. And so we got to think about what kind of product we want to be. Do we want to be that store brand product? Do we want to be that national brand product? National brand product gets more responsibility and more compensation than the store brand product. So hopefully you already know the answer to that. This seems like a strange place to start. How are you interesting? What makes you tick? How about why are you qualified? Well, let's get right down to it. I don't hire people because they're qualified. Don't mishear that. I wouldn't hire anybody that was not qualified. I hire them because why are they interesting? What makes them tick? What drives them? What's their passion? If I hire you, I probably have to spend my waking life with you. And that means, yes, I'd like you to be capable and qualified, but I want to like you. So you can't forget to tell the rest of the story, which is part of how you take control of the discussion about you, both professionally and as a three-dimensional, real 360-degree person. That's very, very important to really winning them over. And again, it's our job to influence them. And the best influence platform out there for your career is LinkedIn. You can really take control of the discussion. You can let them look over your shoulder with social media about what you're reading, doing, sharing, or attending that shows you're living and breathing your profession. There's a lot that we can do. So back to the resume for a second. You heard me mention it. It's the essence and value of your career on a single sheet of paper, not a summary, a biography, a laundry list of everything, not this ridiculously long CV format that nobody wants to ever see again. It's a simple sales sheet that creates desire. Oh, get them in here. Get them on the phone. I have to speak with them. That's the right resume, by the way. If your resume is not doing it for you, check out selfrecruiter.com and check out under my services tab, and you'll have all my packages. I can help you lift your brand substantially from where it is now. Now, LinkedIn. What is LinkedIn? It's the de facto social networking website for our work life. It's really very similar to Facebook, but this one's for career. And it's also a few other things that most people don't think about. Now, business people think of it this way automatically, this communications, research, marketing, advertising platform. But guess what? As an individual, you have a career brand to manage forevermore. And so you have to think about these things on an everyday basis. And back to this idea of I could have them looking over my shoulder. What am I reading, doing, sharing, attending? That is all part of strategic marketing of my skill set, keeping myself right in the forefront of all the industry players' brains. Let's get to the network piece. There's a 3-level network on LinkedIn. When you and I connect, happy guy in the corner connected to another happy person on the right, no matter what those folks do to their settings, every one of their connections are also in John's pool. And no matter what those folks do to their settings, every one of their connections are also in John's pool. Now, they're not my connections, but they're in my pool, which is very, very similar. When I share something, if the algorithm that determines our destiny thinks that it's relevant, of interest to anybody in that pool, it could land on their newsfeed. So this becomes a very powerful 3-level influence network that we have to take advantage of in very strategic ways. Again, we can guide them how to think of us. If you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if you're suffering like most are with really poor storytelling is what you may be doing great things at your employers, but you're really doing poor storytelling across your marketing documents, which is your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Work with someone that can lift your brand, retell the story in a way that you're not really capable of because you're too emotionally close to the story. We get so used to telling it the one way, we don't know another way. So check out my Self-Recruiter website, and you can check under the services tab. And if you need to chat with me before knowing which package is right, you can always send me a quick email at john@selfrecruiter.com. Now, my book is a great resource that'll help you as well. Amazon's the easiest place to get it. I'm a big believer in really changing the rules to whatever works best for you. Your job is to get to those decision makers. This is a great guidebook that gets you through a lot of those hurdles, including when you get the wrong offer, how do I renegotiate it? It's all in there. Check it out. On my homepage of my Self-Recruiter website, very special version of today's lecture, where you can start and stop and see me large or see the slides large. And really, you could use that as a start and stop tutorial while you're building out a better LinkedIn profile. That's right halfway down my homepage on selfrecruiter.com. It's all free. Take a look there. On LinkedIn, if you happen to be there or you visit it afterward, just go to my LinkedIn, click on my posts, look for the articles. And there's a number of articles there that will help you through a lot of the challenges that you're facing in job search. Fresh perspective, new idea. Back to the not letting someone else think for yourself. Get out of the back seat, get behind the wheel. Let's get to our destination. Often involves putting down that smartphone, tablet, whatever it might be, and having a little true focus. Now, our brand in the digital world, which is really what LinkedIn is all about, also applies to places like X or Instagram, whatever you're using to put your job search message out there. Instagram may seem to be a strange one. Instagram, how would I use that for job search? Well, it's not so much that you're using it for job search. You use it to tell another aspect of who you are. what makes you interesting, what makes you tick. It's part of why social media matters today and how you can influence people about the 360-degree you. Now, I think you already get this version of me, so I don't use my Instagram for really anything professional. Um, it's about showing a different aspect of who I am, what drives me, what makes me tick. Social media in general is where you need to use it for all of these reasons, but the second from the bottom one there is the most important. With the proper use of social media, you can stay on the top of people's minds with seemingly almost no contact with them, and yet they're thinking about you. They're keeping your eye on the contact list or the Rolodex, whatever we want to call that. Now, why will you get hired? Well, of course, be capable and confident, but that's not the reason. That's not the reason. That's one of the reasons, and it's the basic checkbox. If you're not capable and qualified, I'm not going to hire you. But it comes down to chemistry, number one, above all other things. That means if you're missing one of the must have these, if you're missing one of those, but you have the chemistry, they'll be fine. They can learn that. I can't teach chemistry. Chemistry beats out everything else. So we have to really think about that. Confidence is incredibly important. You have to allow yourself to drink enough of the Kool-Aid to really believe in yourself more than the next 5 or 6 people that really want that job. Not so much that we cross the ego and arrogance line, because then they're going to go, I can't stomach this person. I couldn't get caught in the airport with them. You want to hear more about getting caught in the airport? Listen to yesterday's lecture, Resume Renovation. Why do you get hired? It's why you're interesting, what makes you tick, what drives you, what's your passions. So you want to think about what your story is really and how to convey that. Now, this isn't about making your LinkedIn become Facebook. It's about showing just enough of the additional parts of who you are to satisfy this more interesting than the next 5 or 6 dull people. All good, but dull. I got to spend my waking life with you if I hire you. Let me take you over to my Instagram for a second. If you check out my Instagram, and there's an Instagram link right at the top of my Self-Recruiter website, but it's just Self-Recruiter, @Self-Recruiter is the Instagram. You'll notice there's nothing about me professionally, but it's me hiking up a half dome in Yosemite, or hiking up in the Hudson Valley, or almost dying out in the California desert about 3.5 years ago. Here it is coming up right now. At a 108-degree day, taking a hike that they said, don't take it in July and August. Don't take it July and August. But Painted Canyon, by the way. This was on my bucket list and almost became the end of my bucket list because 108 degrees and took a wrong turn up on the plateau. By the way, it was fabulous hike. And that wrong turn added 2 extra miles in the direct sun. And by the end of it, my heart rate was over 180 beats a minute for a full hour. I did not think I was going to make it back. I was having terrible ideas of how traumatic it would be for my other half to be out there with me dead in the desert. And this was right before we realized the wrong turn. A lot of things on Instagram, but you know what? It fills in another aspect of who I am. And that's part of anybody's hire or buy decision. So think about how you may use different platforms, even though we're talking about LinkedIn today, because small changes change perception about everything. It's a paradigm shift, a new approach, not just a little bit of new paint. It's a total rethinking of a process. It's our job to teach them how to select you. A lot of discussion of this tomorrow, but your LinkedIn profile can begin to teach them how to select you as the very best individual. Now, here's a trap a lot of people fall into with their story. They hear a lot of this and they go, oh, I know, I'll just be cookie cutter perfect. Fantastic. Cookie cutter perfect. Great. I'll take number 2. Number 2, I'm going to pay you less. No, you don't want less. Okay, I'll take number 3, number 5. It doesn't matter because you're all cookie cutter perfect. Cookie cutter perfect is important. You have to be that as well, but you also have to be different, special, exceptional somehow. And that's how you get a different level of compensation, and sometimes even a carve out for different responsibilities and different title. So don't be afraid to go after a role that may be a little too junior in title for me. I'm never afraid of that. I'm sure they're going to fall in love with my skill set, and then we'll negotiate the right level of responsibility, title, and compensation at the end of it. That's always my approach. For clarity here, resume is about catching or piquing interest, that first point of contact typically. Get them in here, get them on the phone. LinkedIn, in my view, is about helping them close the deal in their mind as, oh, this is obviously one of the very best individuals that I can look at here. Another way to think of it is the essence and value of your career on a single sheet of paper, and LinkedIn becoming this more three-dimensional sales brochure all about you that naturally drives their reader to a singular conclusion. If I work with, buy, or hire from that person, best business decision I'll make today. Even though it's LinkedIn, I just want to give you this little secret for the top of your resume. Your contact line needs to be a single line, not stacked up like a layer cake, eating up valuable real estate on a single page resume. On the left side, easiest to get to, we want your LinkedIn profile. If they're not completely convinced, click on that LinkedIn URL, get to my sales brochure. Let me convince you the rest of the way. If they are convinced, next easiest thing on the far right is my cell phone number. Click, call, why aren't you calling me already type thing. So that will lead them to your sales brochure, which is your LinkedIn profile, that kind of approach on your contact line. One of the challenges today with the pandemic and many of us experiencing remote work and now hybrid work, and some of us are back to the office 5 days a week. That does not mean we don't need to show ourselves with ability to work remotely, even if we're 5 days in the office. This world has changed. Business practices have changed. We have to be able to show ourselves effective at a distance. And there's many, many ways. If you haven't worked remotely, if you can't outline that piece of it, there's many other ways, just like I'm doing now with a conference call or a webinar or speeches or those things, dealing with offsite clients, partners, vendors, all those things can show effectiveness at a distance. Make sure that's part of your story. Now, LinkedIn is really about networking. Let me get a little bit of coffee here and I'll tell you all about it. You know, networking is part of the magic that has to happen so people naturally put us on the short list for the interview, even before we apply for it sometimes. It's really interacting with other people to exchange information. But I like this second part here that you see, this pool of contacts that we can leverage to our benefit. You know, with this 3-level network on LinkedIn, it's incredible. Now, I recommend using it the way most people aren't thinking. Most people are thinking like, oh, I'll find someone who can introduce me. Well, sometimes, very rarely, once or twice a year, is that going to work? If you find just the right person who's totally enamored with your skill set, who has just the right relationship with that decision maker and can sell you, that's a rare event that happens once or twice a year. What I mean is it's full of information that you can act upon to put yourself right in front of the decision maker. That's part of becoming a self-recruiter. Traditional networking is, nobody likes it. Even I don't like it. I'm actually, regardless of what you see here, I'm actually shy and introverted. So makes my friends spit out their drink when they hear it because they haven't really seen it. But just because I'm great at hiding it or using technique to get past it does not mean it's not true. So do you think I like to go to networking events? No. Am I good at it? Very, very good at it. Networking events, really, everyone's stuck in this ridiculous idea of, I have to go sell myself, Okay, a little bit. Nobody wants to hear you sell yourself. Networking events are really about meeting the right people and collecting information that you can act upon. So it's really about giving other people the stage rather than, I got to tell my story. I don't want to tell my story. In fact, I want to tell my story last. Networking is as simple as gosh, what brought you here today? Oh, what are you interested in? Oh, no, where do you work? Oh, what's it like over there? All sorts of information that could be useful to me if I'm keeping track, which is very, very important. And oh, gee, have you met so-and-so? Oh, no, what brought you here today? Oh, and then when I get to the end of all these people around me and they turn around and go, well, what about you, John? I'm like, well, sure. Now that you're actually listening and not thinking about your own story, I'll tell you a very encapsulated little piece about why I'm valuable. We tend to run through this list and go, oh, I'm so glad it's done. Well, that's the usual customer expected. And we need to think in more unusual terms. And that means leveraging LinkedIn in a very, very different way. Not typically as simple as getting in the room, throwing a few cards around and suddenly having a magical door open. Although sometimes. That traditional networking tends to be a rut, and then it prevents us from doing real behind the scenes digital networking that can really open doors in a very different way. Also tends to leave us in a pretty unhappy place that we don't really enjoy. And it really reaffirms. Sometimes it even turns into a commiseration event. Ooh, worst thing ever. You're there to be optimistic, like the sun will come up tomorrow, even if it's a nuclear holocaust. Well, I hope not, but the sun's coming up tomorrow either way. That level of optimism. Simply change the equation of diminishing returns by changing all of the rules, including for networking. Now back to this idea of the unusual, the unexpected, the unconventional. That'll lead us to some really creative thinking in these light bulb moments of clarity that will open up new pathways to get to decision makers, new ways to present ourselves, new ways to understand what their pain points are so we can sell directly to those things. A lot more about that in the interview session tomorrow. So let's get to one of the first questions I usually get from my in-person audiences. Well, whom should I network with? Whom should I connect with? Let's just get right to the answer here. Everyone. We have this real problem of pre-evaluating, like, who are you? Are you valuable to me? It's like, you have no idea who that person's parent is, who that person's child is, who their best friend is, who their neighbor is. You don't know any of those things. And within 2 or 3 levels of connection, they could be valuable to you. So everybody is a good connection. On LinkedIn, honestly, I don't care if you're in India, Russia, China. I don't care if you're in janitorial services. Every single person, in my view, you should accept as a connection. Doesn't mean I'm going to chat with them all. You know, your time is valuable. You choose to respond only if it's valuable to you. But I want that connection because then I own the 2 or 3 layers behind of those folks forever. And that greatly expands my influence pool. So everyone is a good connection. And by the way, you must get to 501 connections. If you don't get to 501 connections, you're not labeled 500 plus, and you're certainly not a mover, shaker, finger on the pulse of your specialty. And you have to be seen that way. So think of all the places that you can network with, all the places you can exchange cards with, all the people you can meet that you can then hop online afterward and connect with on LinkedIn to expand your network. And that means we have to be thinking in a very, very different way. Link with as many people as possible to sum up this first part. Now I want to show you 2 or 3 here techniques that recruiters use every day before I show you how to maximize your profile as a selling brochure. My background, because I didn't mention it earlier, you may have not listened to yesterday yet, resume renovation, by the way, 7, 8 years in outside recruitment. That's a traditional headhunter on a desk, having to go into the competitor, find the superstar, lure them out. It's really very much like a glorified dating guru, maybe millionaire matchmaker. Maybe I should have gone that route. It's the same skill set. Ended up being a national trainer, 100 office recruiting system. So headed up the whole training program and then VP of the whole thing before really moving out to do what I do now over the last dozen years, which is work directly with individuals to help lift their career brand and really get them the recognition that they already feel they've earned, but somehow people don't feel that way about them. You've earned it. Let's go grab that brass ring that we've earned. So these techniques I used every day as a recruiter, and you can use them yourself as a self-recruiter. First one is understanding how to get to your goal. So this 1 back, 1 forward technique will help you build a statistically perfect list of 30 companies that would hire you tomorrow. It's really just like magic. They'd hire you tomorrow if they have an opening. And that's the part we don't know is, do they have an opening? But if they had an opening, they would hire you tomorrow. Well, now at least you have the right organizations lined up. Your odds begin to change when you approach the right ones versus, just looking for the right title. Why don't you approach the 30 organizations that would hire you the moment they have a pain point? Changes things. Now, a good recruiter does this technique. If you've worked with a recruiter and it didn't go somewhere, well, they're probably just pulling information from you. If you worked with a recruiter because you have a stellar unicorn A++ background in your field, then it probably did go somewhere. And the moment they got off the phone with you, what they did was they did this technique using their own recruiter database. Well, you have your own database. It's called LinkedIn. And we can use the technique there. The recruiter then builds this statistically perfect list. They don't bother to look at the job boards. They don't bother to look at those company websites. They simply pick up the phone and call 30 managers at 30 companies, and 2, 3, or 4 every single time go, we need a person just like this. Oh, you do? Tell me about your need. Tell me about your problem. Tell me what's going on with your team. They don't tell them about the homework, the magic trick of how they position themselves to get struck by lightning. And by the way, 2, 3, or 4 out of 30 is a very good return. It is worth your homework investment. So how does this work? I'm going to go into LinkedIn. I'm going to search for people that are just like me, not in every way, shape, or form, but in some way, shape, or form. And then I'm going to find people that had made one job move forward since we were identical in some way. By default, they'll have one job back. That's one back, one forward. I gather up all those people together. And yes, it takes homework. That's problem solving. This is the most important project you've ever worked on. Let's put a little effort into it. I look at the one back and one forwards, and let's say I used to work for Coca-Cola as a quality manager. First thing I'm going to do is experience exasperation because I see 7-Up, Pepsi Cola, RC Cola. John, I could have written this list myself. Yes, that part of the list you should have written yourself right off the top of your head. And then you're going to see all these other food and beverage companies you've never heard of. There's like a million of them. Every single one of them statistically perfect to hire you because they hired your duplicate. It's really that simple, really is. That's the one back, one forward technique. I'll show you another method to creating that list later on, but that's the most valuable way to create it. 1, 2, 3 forward. Now I have an example to show you here because it's a little more complex to mentally digest. This is great if you're just out of school and wanting to get started. This is also great if you're mid-career and I'm so done with this, but now what? That's all I've been. I don't know what to do next. This technique works for that as well. So what we're doing here is trying to not reinvent the wheel. The wheel is a fabulous invention, but it's already been invented. We don't have to smash our head against the concrete to reinvent the wheel. I can find a pathway towards some objective that I didn't even understand existed by doing this. And so I had a gal call me up from Atlanta, and she says, I think I need a career coach. I think I don't have a career. I'm like, ouch. Send me your stuff. Let's take a look. And, she was 2 or 3 jobs into the market, but nothing really she wanted. She a little of this, a little of that. Now she's managing a health club. Nothing wrong with managing a health club. I can't seem to find a career. I'm like, well, I have this technique. Why don't you use this technique? And so I said, you're just out of school. No, I've been working. Well, there's nothing really here. I said, I see your asset as your education and your focus. And this individual went to Clark Atlanta University. And so we did a search for folks that went to Clark Atlanta University, and they studied mass media. So with keywords, we searched mass media. And through the magical of filtering everything else, we found people that were 3, 4, 5 years, about the same amount of time out of school as this individual was. And it doesn't matter where they're located. I'm like, well, what do you like? We're brainstorming here. And it's like, events. I like to work at events. Events at Warner Brothers. That seems really interesting to me. It's like, I'd love to be a membership director for a nonprofit. It's like, recruiter. I'd like to help people. I said, we'll come back to that one. And so Trish here, this membership director at the Chamber of Commerce, this nonprofit, how did they get there? What do you think their first job was? Membership associate, and their second job, membership manager, and voila, 3 steps in, their membership director. Well, here's my client here over on the right, Tahita. Didn't really understand what she was going to go after, but now she knows she's going to go after a nonprofit or foundation. Lots of those in Atlanta. I don't know what role. It's going to be member services role. I don't even know what that does. I don't either, but apparently they're going to love your background. Let's go sell it. And then she finds herself on the first step of her 3-step rung. But I've been telling this for a while. She's made 2 more jumps, up to manager of member services and database, and finally up to director of membership operations, down an entire track that she didn't realize existed before our discussion. If you're so done selling sugary sodas, that quality person out of Coca-Cola or whatever your function might be, you can use the same technique. And yes, it's a lot of work to find people that made 3 job moves forward to learn this pathway. And most of them are all food and beverage, but then some of them will have spiraled out into other industries, other directions. How they do it? I don't know. Why don't we just follow them though? There's something about your background, either your exposure to companies or exposure to your training or something that those companies like. Let's go introduce ourselves in that direction to all their competitors as well. And let's get you hired that way. Great technique to open up new pathways for you. This one's very troubling to me, especially in the modern world. Perception is reality, but if we don't understand that now, we're in trouble. I mean, perception is reality. I hope that it doesn't replace actual hard, good work, but actual hard, good work and deliverables without perception management does not get you the credit. You have to also manage the perception so you get that credit, because we're this product and people have to believe in the product, and you have to believe in the product more than anybody else, which means also we have to have an idea of how we see this product and how we want to elevate this product, which aspects, where to place the lighting and the staging and everything else. Getting ready to renovate your LinkedIn profile, dramatically change it. The amount of success you get is directly tied to the amount of preparation you put in. But small little changes do change perception, and they change reality very, very quickly. And they can satisfy all these things, these hurdles that we have to get around. Now, let me show you just a few of the shares that I have on LinkedIn, which is also part of perception management. Here I was doing a Morgan Stanley event, so I shared a picture of that. And here I was doing one of my lectures at the New York Public Library, so I shared something about that. And here, this was a few years ago, I was doing a online boot camp. I do an online boot camp usually a few times a year, and was doing that, and someone captured a shot during my online boot camp. Now, my father was a Catholic deacon. I saw him in that pose all the time, so I know he would have loved that shot. And he's, of course, passed away now, but a very nice long life. Here I am, WHCR, Voice of Harlem Radio. I think I've been up there 3-4 times. So fun. It's 2 hours of drive time in the morning, 6 to 8 in the morning, which means I have to get up like at 3:30 in the morning to have, bathroom time, shower, everything else. I have to have my food and have to have coffee. Then I got to get up there, and then I got to slide into that chair before 6 a.m. and put the headphones on. I didn't make it into the picture, but my coffee and my book did. A lot of fun, and it's all off the cuff. Doesn't prepare anything. This host, so it's really interesting. Sharing some of the longer form articles that I have shared that will help you in your job search, maybe even help you in your getting fit piece. Radio show host shared all the authors he had on that month. So I reshared his content, a little bit of piggybacking. Of course, I'm as part of that. I can't share the same darn thing all the time. So I was looking for a new image, posting one of my lectures, and someone had been in my audience right up front. And toward the end of it, I'm sharing this ridiculously long email signature that I have. Again, grew up Catholic with such shame and modesty. And it's like, first time I wrote this out, I'm like, oh, what would my mother think? It's like, wow, looks like you made it, John. So at the end of the lecture, I'm a little bit probably greasy and having a lot of fun, but suddenly breaking my brand a little bit, 1,500 views out of nowhere. I exert a lot of brand control, and full disclosure, my other half is a creative director, so that helps a lot. I've absorbed a lot over time, but we can't be afraid to be a human being also, because that opens up connections. As we go to brand your career and we move into LinkedIn, to me, it's about not only LinkedIn, but also either Twitter or X, whatever we want to call that, not having them being duplicate, but also having them be very interesting. I can go to something like X or Twitter, and I can, give me any position, any industry, give me a few minutes to think about it, and 4, 5, 6 words, I can come up with just the right top of the cream individuals, because those folks attend certain events, they share certain best practices papers, they live and breathe their profession in a different way. And it's very easy to find that activity through a reverse search on social media. You begin to think about what you might let flow across these platforms. And over time, this is all of your image marketing. Now, obviously, these are of me because I'm a public speaker, but they're about articles and books and events going on in your fields. And some of them might include you as well. So there's a whole separate lecture called Career Evolution. Once you have the right LinkedIn profile, how do you put together that social media campaign? There's copies of that over on my Self Recruiter YouTube channel under the Live tab. So check that out. I'll probably be presenting that one next month. Really, all of this story about your background has to be filtered through a singular lens. What is going to bring them to this conclusion with this simple question? Why will it be the best business decision they make today if they choose to hire me? If it rises to that level, it becomes part of the story. If it doesn't help in that effort, it has to disappear into the background. And that means my story obviously has to focus on ways of effective performance. I may have to take a lot of duty responsibility out of the discussion. Duties are like duty. Nobody's interested. It's really about how did you affect the performance of the team or the organization or the division or whatever it might be. Let's jump into LinkedIn and go section by section, which will help you. Now, when others look at you, what do they see? Or you look at others, what do they see? This is important because it's part of how you trigger a marketing event. You know, when you look at someone and they sign in, 6 people looked at you. Who's looked at me? If you haven't looked at that feature, you certainly will after this. And once you start looking at it, it's very difficult to stop looking at it because it's human nature. So you can essentially market yourself right in behind the firewall of the company, right into people's brains very quickly by looking at them with your right sales brochure. So what do they typically see? Even on the free version, you get to see 5 people. So how would you like to present yourself if you were one of these 5 people? Do you want to be these anonymous people that are like, don't look here? There's no purpose to this. There's no purpose to privacy on LinkedIn. This is your public professional shingle to the world. It's your curated garden of your content. You control every single word about yourself. There's no reason for this to be private. We have to get past our shyness and put that story out there. So that doesn't really help us here. Jonathan here, I'll just tell you that Jonathan does not work in the fashion or glam industry. So that profile shot does not work. It's not about finding a pretty or nice or handsome profile shot. It's about finding the right product shot. Now, Deborah here, finally, we have a focus on Deborah. This is great. I mean, I get a good sense of her energy from the picture. Now I got the focus of textiles, lighting, fashion, interiors. Fantastic, fantastic. But I wish I understood what she was doing within those sectors. Is she like making the coffee, answering the phones? Is she designing the textiles? Is she selling the textiles? We don't really know what she's doing there. And so, you know, a little bit of a missed opportunity here. Of course, now Brad here, corporate affairs and communications, global reputation management, crisis comms, government relations. Gosh, I can contact that guy too. And looks the part. Of course, full disclosure, that's one of my clients. Your profiles are essentially the world at your window. Imagine you're in retail. Well, it wouldn't be a very good time to be in retail, but imagine you're in retail. Your job is to get people into the store. What do you put in your window to get people into the store? What do you put in your LinkedIn profile to get people to read your deeper sales brochure all about you? And again, it comes back to a lot of how are we interesting? What makes you tick? Where's your energy? How do we showcase that? First impressions are everything. So yes, we need to use the banner. If you're not using the banner, I mean, by now, if we're not using the banner, it really says you're paying no attention at all and you don't understand anything about how these things work. This is part of how you set your brand, your image, your style. Now, I'm in my banner. I'm a public speaker. You do not need to be in your banner. If you have a great shot speaking to an audience, yes, you should be in your banner. Absolutely. Ego aside, it'll help you. But it can be anything either directly related to your industry or indirectly related to your function. It could be subliminal, in fact, but it's something to set the feel of your brand. And it should not be a distraction from your profile shot. It has to work in harmony with your profile shot. Profile shot, what's the right profile shot? Probably not the one you chose. We're all so biased against ourselves when we select those darn pictures of ourselves. It's like, oh, not that one, not that one, not that one. You know what I see when I look at my pictures? Where's my hair? Why is my nose so big? All those things we don't like about ourselves. But this picture, I can tell you, was taken a few years ago. This was taken at City Hall here in New York on a Tuesday morning, about 2:30 in the, I think it was afternoon, actually, 2:30 in the afternoon. And a couple of my friends getting married. Hundreds of people around us. A photographer just kept moving and moving and shooting, never really posed us. Somehow got me isolated against the poles to create depth in the background. So what are we looking at here? Joy over my friends getting married. The right picture has energy, enthusiasm, drive, passion. Above everything else is presence. It's all intangible. We can't tell you when we see it, or we can tell you when we see it, but we can't tell you what it is. So a little bit of the cat that ate the canary, having the best day ever. Probably the right shot. 3/4 shot, I can certainly get away with that as a public speaker. Would have been better had I been looking at camera. Be better if you're looking at camera, if you're looking to get hired. Type over top of the picture, not if you'd like to be hired. Independent expert absolutely works really well for that. But if you want to be hired, that is really not the right way to do it. Now, your text that's just below your name. This is your headline. Most people really don't understand this. They get so emotionally attached to their profile and what it needs to say. About the worst or least you can do with that is your current or last employer and title. Snooze fest. That's the best thing you can say about your value. The use of this is not about your profile, even though it seems silly. The use of this is about when you do a social media share about what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending, and they're looking over your shoulder. That can go out to millions of people across the network that have no clue who you are. Besides the wonderful thing on your industry you share, you want them to see your name and why you're valuable. So how are you going to encapsulate why you're valuable? What do I write? Author and career coach, resume and LinkedIn and career branding guru, featured speaker at New York Public Library, Department of Labor, CUNY, many others, quoted and seen in the Wall Street Journal, CNN, on and on and on. Oh, I can contact that guy. Yeah, right there. That's my email address. Would you like to be contacted? Put your email address in the headline. It's one of the only places LinkedIn does not promptly hide it from 99% of the people. That's their business model, by the way. I refuse to be controlled that way. Will you get some spam? Absolutely. What are you going to do? Let spam prevent you from getting to your destiny? Silly. Nobody likes spam. Buy a good spam filter. I recently had to do one to clean up my inbox because I post so many places. But this is an encapsulation so that really when they see what you share, they can't resist clicking on it and opening up your sales brochure. Of course, reaching 500 plus is very, very important. And even sometimes the about section will show in that very first thing. So we have to start off with something interesting. I put in this wonderful quote, which I wrote myself, and I put quotes around it, and there it is. You can do the same types of things, but you have to put thought into it here. You have to put thought about the banner image. How am I going to make a profile image that works with that? How am I going to come up with the right headline that makes sense and sells it? And it's almost like a 240 character resume about you, this marketing message. Each of these, by the way, you go in with the little pencil that you click, the little blue edit piece, and it's trial and error till you get the right presentation about you, working with that banner, placing it, making sure all of it really sells. Now, as you get down to the about or the summary section, this is so much space. It is 2,000 characters of space. In my version, it's like 3 screens long. But you notice something, there's no sentence structure other than that quotation that's there. There's none of that piece of it. There's no blocks or paragraphs of text. We're in a world where no one will read, which I have to say at the New York Public Library, and wait to get struck by lightning. That portends some awful things for our future. But if we understand that no one will read, where's the silver lining? Well, then don't use sentence structure and don't use blocks of text that no one will read. And so a good example is even these media hits. Oh, I could have put those in a very different way, much more succinctly this way, but then it would have taken an extra second, 2 or 3. Well, there isn't an extra second, 2 or 3. And white space, of course, incredibly important to how we absorb things. Now, there's so much room. I then put in the fact that I speak at the New York Public Library, at the Department of Labor. And then instantly I put in 8 more places that I speak at because I can't have them miss NYC Service or a Rainbow Push Wall Street project or Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program or Harvard Business School Club of New York City. But if I just put in another block of 8, well, that's a big block of text. I hope there's pictures. Well, there are pictures, but don't miss these things. And I have to break them up into chewable chunks for the brain. That's part of parsing out the information so it's absorbable. But then we get so far down, you see I rolled a dice on a whole paragraph. Yes, a whole paragraph right out of my book. But I figured if I lost them by now, I've already lost them, but I don't think so. Of course, then I mentioned my full services, and then I begin to attach different things. There's this whole featured box, which can showcase many things that you're involved in or many things that you're paying attention to. And it's about having them look over your shoulder with your activity about whether I'm working or not or haven't worked in a year. Is this guy or gal living and breathing their profession? What are they all about? Now, as you get down to the traditional resume part, it doesn't look like a traditional resume. Well, those things don't work for most people, so why would I have it look like a resume? Think of this as just white space for you to paint your story, to separate out your story in absorbable little chunks. And then how are you going to parse out that information? So here's a little bit more of a traditional layout, but you realize there's no sentence structure. Without that sentence structure, it's still very, very absorbable. And when I group it and simplify it, then I go back and add just a little tiny bit of all capitalization to help the absorption with the brain. Too much all cap, not going to read anything at all. To know all cap, probably not going to read very much at all. So just a little bit to make the absorption easier. Now here's some more traditional 2-line bullets. So you realize we can just glance across these bullets and get the whole story. Glance, have the story. Glance, have the story. Now, if you need a keyword block, and most people do not, this is how you do it. You simply carriage return down a few extra lines, and you put keywords, run it all together. This is for the machine. This is not for people. People get it. Oh, keywords, just don't look here. It doesn't matter. I don't know if you're looking at my keywords or not, but if you were going to see things like Stephen Covey, Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins. Never know how to search him. Tori Johnson, 5 O'Clock Club, 92nd Street Y. All these things have absolutely nothing to do with. Why are they here? Those are all things you could search to find someone like John, but that's not part of my organic story. If you keyword search those things, I wouldn't come up. But now, cleverly, I will come up, or 5 O'Clock Club, all that kind of stuff. So if you need to come up around certain companies that you haven't worked for, or if you need to come up around certain like industry players that you don't have a relationship with, this is a way to come up in those same search results very, very easily using a keyword block. All of this requires going in and out of the editing to play with the layout. Yes, if you didn't figure it out already, all of those 2-line items or multiple line items, those are all hard returns. I don't just let the text flow, because then it would become a paragraph. You have to make choices and really look over the look to make sure it presents you the best way. Then also share some things about what's going on with you. Obviously, mine are all on my talks and everything else, or being on Rise TV for a show, those kinds of things. A couple of techniques I want to show you from earlier in my story. And you can spend time on my LinkedIn profile yourself, John Crant, and check these out. But back when I was VP over the 100 office recruiting system, we were a national recruiting firm doing manufacturing, engineering, supply chain, logistics, and really just a clever way to get more keywords in here. Now, this would be a terrible technique to use on the resume. You have a single sheet of paper. You need to focus that story on your value. But here, we're not handcuffed by the same real estate limitations. So here, spreading a little sugar around in the story can get more results when people do a search for someone like me. Same technique from much earlier, associated clients. Now, that could get you in trouble. Be careful of those non-disclosures. Be careful of the trade secret agreements. But this can be very, very valuable to you. And so I had the right to share every single client I worked with. I shared every single client that I worked with. And if you worked for any one of those companies, if you think about this technique, and you needed help with your resume or help with your LinkedIn profile, guess who would come right up in the search? So think about how you tell that story. Would you like endless new connections forever? Copy this line right out of my profile and paste it into yours. Invite me, all invites accepted, Open Networker and Lion, because people simply search those things and then connect with all of those people. And again, it doesn't matter what function they're in, what industry, what country, none of that matters, because you're gaining the 2 layers of network behind them. And so really endless new connections forever. Publications module, I use it. If you have a book, great place for it. If you've been featured in articles, great place for that as well. But even if you just shared a few pearls of wisdom, wrote a couple papers, you could stick those on a free blog and still use this mechanism. There is an actual link out to the blog, although no one ever goes there. But this acts as another way to sell your background. And plus, all that becomes keyword searchable. Anybody volunteer? Volunteer, volunteer. Don't look here. Don't look here. For myself, nor my clients, I don't use the volunteer module because we're so dismissive. The moment we hear volunteer, we go, oh, it's not real. You know what today is? This is volunteering. I guarantee you this is work and it's real. So everything goes under the organizations module. Now, don't be frightened by the dates. This module does not require dates. I have dates in here for time relevance of skill as a public speaker, but you can leave the dates out. And this is also the module where I put good works, because good works also don't expire. If you did something for Habitat for Humanity in 2004, it's here, just not the date. All of those things go here. And a few good works also get you the character checkbox. So very, very important. Now, look at this part here. This is Grace Institute. This is the same technique over on the right, NYU Wasserman Center. I'll probably mispronounce that. Sorry about that. But I was invited over for a roundtable event, and I'm like, oh, sure. I'm always open. Let's try something. And they were going to have a moderator and 2 or 3 individuals that would be in the discussion panel. And I'm preparing for the event, and suddenly I see John Ladinsky has like so many more connections than I have. I'm like, oh, I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I'm very competitive. and I'm thinking about how I can get more numbers. It's not so much that I want more numbers than John. I want John's connections because I already have my connections. And so this is how you can spread a little credit, a little love around in the storytelling by mentioning John or Jessica or Vincent or the Washington Center. Anytime those things are searched, guess who also comes up in the results? It's just another way to extend your exposure. So if you have a way to use this in your storytelling, it's very, very good for you. Keyword skills endorsement module. It's 50 words of phrases all about you. You need to put them in there or other people will start putting them in there. And that's not good control of your brand. Put them all in there and just over time, the right ones will float to the top with endorsements and everything else. All of this information you put in there gets truncated in a very nice way, so it is not overwhelming to the visitor. They can expand any section they'd like to see more on. And when they expand, all that is still keyword searchable, so it's very, very helpful to them. Even if they expand it to see more content, all becomes keyword searchable. So to me, this is where you build out the full sales brochure about your background. Connect with some really great individuals. Connect with all those people that are important to you. Give out endorsements, written endorsements, and get written endorsements back. I think I have 52, 53, 54 written endorsements. Very hard to get these days, but if you give them, you tend to get them type thing as well. Join groups. I think you need to join as many groups as possible. Some to showcase your industry connection, some to showcase a skill set. Some I might join because if you said to me, well, John, I think a CEO is going to hire me. Is my next decision maker that's going to hire me. I'm like, great, let's go join the group of CEOs. I'm like, I'm not a CEO. I didn't say you were a CEO, but part of the magic in all of this is that your decision maker is in that group. If I build a really nice LinkedIn profile and I get myself into the group of C-level individuals, which is very, very possible, then when I share something, it could land on that CEO's desktop. Or when that CEO looks for a person like myself, they can find me. So sometimes I join groups because the decision maker is part of that group, or it's a new industry or a new function I'd like to go to, even though I don't have the background to it. Group strategy, very, very important. Join as many groups as possible. All of the group members, once you're in it, are almost like connections. Your content can flow freely. The algorithm can make the connections. And remember, it determines your destiny. Follow some influencers. Look at that. I'm following some interesting people, even Tony Robbins, probably so I can get behind him, give him a little push off stage. Getting long in the tooth, have to make some room for the rest of us. Getting to that 500 plus level means I have to get to 501 or I'm not going to be labeled that. It's really very, very easy. And there's so many benefits as you see here. I just go up to the unified search box. I'm going to search these things one at a time. Invite me with quotations, so I don't get someone that says invite over here and me over here. Invite me, all invites accepted, open networker, and lion. Not lion doesn't need the quotes, it's a single word, and you're going to get some that don't belong, like I work at Food Lion or I'm on the Lion team of the real estate company. Okay, but most of them are high volume networkers. Wherever you are in this process, take your first step and learn to repeat, repeat, repeat. Now, I'm going to show you something else here, but I want you to think about creating a job search plan. This means starting with selecting the organizations, those 30 organizations that you want to go after, profit, nonprofit, doesn't really matter. Allowing yourself to think like a detective. I mean, John's thing's not possible, is it? But if it were, how do I align the sun, move the stars, working backward to discover the decision makers? You know what their job is? To object to you. You know what your job is? To overcome the objection with how you put your thoughts together so you convince them and you get a meeting, you get them to give you the job or create the job, or all of that will help you. But of course, we've got to get to the decision maker. This is one of the most important parts of the lecture. I'm going to show you how to get to anybody that you'd like to get to. We go to this unified search box at the top of the page. It's the same on every single page. I'm going to search for whatever I'd like. In this example, I'm searching a company called Informatica. Used to be one of my big cash cows as a recruiter. A lot of placements. So I put in Informatica, but as I start typing, it gives me this drop-down list. Don't click on it. Don't click on it. It's a trip down the rabbit hole. Don't do it. So I just hit enter, and suddenly I get this nice secondary sorting process. Yes, I'm looking for people, but as long as I'm here, there must be other companies I'm not thinking about that I should also look at and maybe even market myself to. And so I go into companies. Oh, there it is, hiding behind one of the drop downs. And what do we get? We get 34,000 companies. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Now, after you get past all the ones that are named Informatica, who are all the rest of these? Well, I can tell you. It used to be my field. They're all system integrators. They either install or resell Informatica software. If I'm statistically right to work for Informatica, I am very likely statistically right to work for a great number of these companies. And this is an alternate method to build companies that might make sense for you. Think about using that technique as well. But then I need to find people. So I go back over, no, show me the people. What do I get? 2.5 million. I should remind you, I only use the free version of LinkedIn. I can't look at 2.5 million. I'll be cold and in the ground before I get through that list. Let's see. So I've got it. I need the ones just in the US. So show me the ones just in the US. And while I'm thinking of it, I don't need the ones that worked for Informatica 3 years ago. I need the ones working for there right now. So currently working for Informatica, even on the free version, and currently in the US. And what do I get? I get 1,615 results. Better, but I can't look at 1,600 profiles either. LinkedIn will cut me off. So I have to think a little bit. I have to drill down in the keywords, even on the free version. I think a VP is going to hire me. VP in the US, really for Informatica. What do I get? 75 VPs, 70, a lot of chiefs at this company. I think I have it. Maybe it's a director. A director is going to hire me. Really US, really current. So no, 228 directors. I'm going the wrong way. I have it. You know why I have it? Because it's problem solving. That's what this is. I have to brainstorm and problem solve. It's a sales director. And as long as I'm really thinking, how about right down to the New York City area? Yep, even on the free version. 3. What we're really looking for here is 3 to 5 individuals. And along the way, I'm going to open up 25 to 30 profiles that somehow surround this job I'm imagining. Up the food chain. Don't be shy. Down, right down to admin level for very strategic reasoning, left and right into other departments. All that audience that I'd probably interact with every day once I have this job. I need to warm that audience up, open their profiles. But I have to get to the 3 to 5 people. And I've got 3. I've done it. But you'd have better results if you got to 5. So maybe if I went back and looked, maybe there's a sales VP also in New York City and also still there. There's 2 more. Fantastic. I love it. It's just really what I'm looking for. Now I've got 5 individuals I can reach out to. Oh, but I get this send in mail. I hope you understand what in mail is. It is spam. It is the literal definition of spam. It is paid email. Do not send it. Any of your high volume targets are probably just like me. I have well over 1,000 unopened nonsense messages spamming me all the time in my LinkedIn inbox. So don't do it. But I do want to connect with this individual. So if I simply load their profile, I get frustrated again with the send in mail, but just under the ... is connect. It's their business model. They can't really hide it very much. I'll put it over here behind the tree. They'll never find it. There it is. And connect with them. Basically, this is something really simple. Simple message. You write one time ever, copy and paste forevermore. It says, you don't know me. I'm professionally appropriate. Gives them a little stroke to the ego. Sounds just like this. I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche, depending on how we like to say that. And comma, of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. You're doing all this to build knowledge. If you go to my self-recruiter website, click on the advice tab, which is my blog, you can download the job search management system. It's all free, and begin to track all of the equity that you're gathering in information so you can act upon it and be motivated to the next step. All of it is very important. Wherever you are in your process, take your first step, the next step, and learn to repeat, get this engine moving. It'll help you quite a bit. This does wrap up today's building your career brand with LinkedIn and really how to use it for your job search. But let's not forget, you can join yesterday's resume renovation, still on replay over on all the platforms, but easiest probably is the Self-Recruiter YouTube channel under the live tab. Also, tomorrow, 10 a.m. is interview intervention, which also includes video interviewing techniques and setup. That is tomorrow, 10 a.m. Please do, if you found value, hit like, comment, share, message, all that kind of fun stuff. Subscribe, depending on what platform you're on. And I will see you very soon. Check out Tuesday's resume renovation lecture, and we'll talk to you very soon. Take care.